Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. I made a long video yesterday, and I made another hour video for my Gratefulness meditation channel. And so today, so I got like 4.5 hours of content out there for the past 2 days. So I'm not going to make a long video here. This is not a Hollywood celebrities dropping like flies. I think this video, Bobby Kennedy just torpedoed his chance for truther support by his take on Palestine, and it should be one Max Blumenthal, not not Max Bloom. Somehow I added an extra Max. I have to go back and fix that. But I got two things I want to show you. Two quick things. One's an extension of this video here. I'm going to talk about Larry David's show. Kennedy's wife used to be on that show, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I'll get into that in just a moment. But first, this is hardcore cautious screening of Barbie in Portland, Oregon. So this is from the Libs of TikTok Twitter account or whatever it is. And this woman, well, this is kind of self-explanatory here.
I don't remember the last time I went to see a movie because I don't love going to the movie theater. But I'll tell you what, it pisses me off that I can't go see Barbie. I want to go see it. Even if it is white feminism, I want to be able to go.
Exactly. Even if it's white feminism, she should be able to go. She hasn't left the house in 3 years. I think that's coming up here.
So I'm doing a thing. And if you live in the Pacific Northwest, you can do a thing with me. Here's what it is. Next week, which is July 31st, August 1st, someday next week on a weekday, I am renting out a theater in Northwest Portland. The entire theater. The whole theater. The theater seats 46 people, I think. We're only going to do 20 tickets. So
Kaboom.
me and 19 other people.
Why would you do that?
That's it. In addition to that, there will be one employee. So the entire building, the entire cinema, is going to be one employee plus 20 attendees. That's it. We are the only people in the building, and every single person, including that employee, is going to be wearing an N95 the entire time.
Kaboom.
The employee's going to put it on before they enter the building. They've been chosen specifically for this purpose. They seem to get it. If you show up because you bought a ticket, I need to see a KN94 well fitted, or a 95 well fitted, or a P100. And if I see a baggy mask, I'm going to tell you to take it off and put on one that I hand you. I'm holding onto a bunch of masks. Choose the one you like best.
She's bringing extra masks.
There are no concessions during the movie. They're not even going to open it up. Do not bother bringing food or drinks. You may not take your mask off in the movie. If you need to scratch your nose, or you
What do you do if you scratch your nose?
need to take a sip of water, you need to get up, exit the theater, do that, and then come back.
What if you miss a critical part of the Barbie plot?
They're going to be medically fragile people there. This is their first opportunity in like 3.5 years, so we are not fucking around here, folks.
Kaboom. She's not screwing around. I'd like to see what she eats in terms of food. My wife said that she sent me this, and she read through the comments, and a lot of people are talking about her obesity here. And I'm not, mocking her for being obese, but she obviously, unless she has some sort of thyroid issue or glandular issue that's causing her to be overweight, she eats poorly. And obesity, I've talked about this so much. You go to Walmart or any major grocery store, but particularly Walmart, and you look in people's, grocery cart, they have a cart full of death, right? They openly sell carcinogens, things that cause cancer, and things that cause heart disease in every supermarket, every fast food place. These foods are killing people. Inevitably, it's a slow kill. But until they die, they have poor health. Their immune systems get taken down. They have organ failure. They have chronic diseases. And it's much more severe than a one-shot hit of COVID, right? In fact, COVID is much worse if you're obese, and certainly if you have type 2 diabetes and all these other things that go with that. We all know that. It's, that's all out there. And this woman's unwilling to wear a mask. She hasn't left her house in 3 years. I mean, she's unwilling to go outside without a mask. She doesn't have any sort of a life, right? And yet she's really unhealthy. And she has health issues, which she's talking about here. And, you can adjust your lifestyle and figure out how you get healthy. And then getting COVID becomes harder and harder. If you do get COVID, you get a lesser version because you have a working, functioning immune system, right? One of the things, I've had COVID 3 times. And I started gaining weight. I was very skinny. I couldn't put on weight when I wanted to. In my basketball years, I wanted to put on muscle mass, and I just couldn't gain weight. I apparently have the fastest type of metabolism you could have. And so I was very skinny till I was about, I put on weight, I think in my 30s. Then I lost it. And then I put a lot of weight on when I was in India, and I was drinking this stuff called Appy Fizz and, going through a tough, stressful time. And, I have worked on losing it, especially when I got COVID, because I knew that was a factor. And so, when you look at me, you don't think I'm really overweight, but for me, I feel like I had a pot belly. But I recently lost a little over 10 pounds, which has been good. And I probably want to lose at least another 10 pounds. And, I knew that there's something I'd have to do, especially with this new pandemic stuff that they're doing. And they're attacking people's immune systems. And as you get older, your testosterone levels goes down, and, your things that you need for your immune system are not as good, right? And so that's what you do. Everyone should do that. Everyone should invest in their health. If you're scared of something like COVID, then, why not try to fix your health issues? I don't know what she's done or not done in terms of trying to lose weight. I don't know what her diet's like. But, it's probably not good, right?
No kids that can't wear a mask solidly for 2 hours. I'm not going to do little kids because I don't blame them, but it is what it is. This is going to be a morning showing. We are the first people in the building, so we will be in and out well before any other employees or other people show up for other showings. The building will have had a chance to clear the air from the night before. And also, they upgraded their filtration over the past 3 years, and they just had an inspection June 26th, their quarterly inspection, and changed out all of their MERV filters. So they're in a pretty good spot. It's going to be $20 to $25 a person. All I'm doing is covering the cost. That's it. So I will refund any overages. It is a risk. I don't know how else to put that.
It's a risk. You go out there, sit in a movie theater, years after COVID, everyone else taking off their masks. But it's a risk, you never know what's going to happen.
It is definitely a risk to be in a building for 2 hours. Makes me anxious. But I feel like it's a measured risk and one I'm willing to take. And if there are...
See, what I'm saying here is she's getting anxious about going there and, of course, breathing in the whole mask thing. That's all that. Remember how bad that all sucked. And she's freaked out about this. And yet she did something, to create her health circumstances that she has now. She talked about being somebody who's vulnerable. She has health issues. Somebody who thinks she gets COVID, she's not going to be able to survive it. She did something to look the way that she looks now. That's a cumulative effort. It doesn't happen overnight. There's something going on that's caused her poor health. And, who knows what she's done or hasn't done to reverse it. But there's things you can do. And, those are the things you should be scared of. The foods that you're eating that are poisonous, that are known carcinogens, that are things that, if you look up the ingredients, cause cancer, cause heart disease, the two biggest killers, and not just death, but poor health. That's the other part. There's all these foods out there that cause chronic illnesses and hurt your quality of life. And those are things you should be scared of, right? But she's worried about sitting in a movie theater with 20 other people wearing...
More cautions that we could take, definitely let me know. But if you want to go, hit the comments, let me know, and I'll be in touch. I'll get in touch with you over DM, and we will make it work. I'm excited, I think, for Barbie.
Exactly. Barbie was well worth coming out of the house.
Not expect to be saying that, right?
Okay, so that's that. Okay, so in my video yesterday, I documented Kennedy's, Bobby Kennedy's bizarre take on the Palestinian-Israel conflict. And I'd never heard anything this warped in terms of anti-Palestine, Israeli narrative. You know, there's all these shills out there. You can Google pretty much all of these presidential candidates: Trump, Biden, Obama, Bush, I mean, all of them. Like, you know, senators and other people. And they'll put on the yarmulke and they'll go up to the Wailing Wall and they'll hold their hand in the Wailing Wall and they'll talk about their support for Israel. And, you know, they don't do the same for Palestine. You know, and I don't cover this here in either of my channels. I briefly covered it in a few videos years ago. I talk about this on my other channel. So I'm going to only say this briefly. And, you know, I dislike all the hatred towards Jewish people in the comment section and blaming them for all the world's problems and people's personal problems. You know, I've talked about this before. There's no victims. Everybody who believes in God is getting exactly what God wants you to get. I mean, that's the way I see all of this stuff, right? So I don't talk about this. It's very controversial, and you know, it's not something I cover very much, or even I mean, I'm not really concerned about it. But Kennedy's take was so egregious. It was, I couldn't believe he was saying what he was saying. And there was a couple of comments here. Let me get to these comments. I gotta find them here somewhere. Here it is. And so the first one is, that's not it. I hope this is the one here. That's not it either. So let me go back and see if I can find it. I didn't bookmark it for some reason. Okay, so here it is. I took a screenshot of it on my phone. Person says, RFK Jr.'s unabashed groveling to Israel was nauseating. Doggone it, Bobby. We were having fun there, watching you dropping so much truth. And I think that really sums it up. Like, he did a very good job of articulating a lot of the truther points in a way that was, you know, more mainstream, and which is a good thing, right? Because truther speak is truther speak. But when you're talking about this on a mainstream level, on a mainstream presidential candidate, Kennedy did a really good job of articulating these points. I was very happy with the way that he presented these things, and it was fun listening to him. Like, I thought he was a interesting person, interesting guest on these shows, and he was a unique candidate in so many ways. But the groveling, like, I never seen anything like it. It was hard to watch. And then this other comment that I got, the person says this: Bobby's wife Cheryl was on an anti-Palestine show that was camouflaged as a comedy, as most of the B shows are. Curb Your Enthusiasm many years ago. I thought the show was great. Now I see. I agree that anybody looking for a savior in a man is headed for disappointment these days. These days draw closer. There will be so-called saviors, heroes of men, and many will be deceived. Paul described the fruit of the Spirit as love, joy, peace, self-control, humility. False prophets will lack these fruits. They will often be identified by pride, anger, lust for money, discord, etc. So the first part of the comment is what I'm, the reason I read that comment was I went and looked at the Curb Your Enthusiasm show. You know, his wife Cheryl played Larry David's wife, and I guess they got divorced on the show. I've never seen anything but clips from the show because I just don't like Larry David. Like, it's hard for me to watch him. Now, the mainstream media, of course, didn't report that Larry David's show was hostile to the Palestinian people. And I don't know, how many episodes they took shots at the Palestinian people. But there was a show called Chicken Palestine, or Palestinian Chicken, episode 8, season 8, episode 3. And so I watched the thing, and I've taken some clips of the show. And so this show is about Larry David and his 4 buddies, or 3 or 4 buddies, are playing golf. And they're going to enter a tournament, and one guy hasn't been there because he's really getting into his rabbi. and spending a lot of time with his rabbi. And another one is, whipped by his wife. But they think they have a good chance of winning the tournament. And they also hear about this chicken place that has amazing chicken that's from Palestine. And so there is mocking of both the Jewish and the Palestinian point of view in this. It's a comedy. And there's some self-deprecating humor. All the characters that are featured in the show are Jewish people. And, it's clearly more unfair to the Palestinians. And it's something that would never be tolerated if it was for Jewish people. So let me show you the clips here.
What about this place? Look at these posters. Huh?
Yeah, they do not like the Jews.
Huh?
Now, I'm going to cover this in a long narrative at the end of it, but you can see they're framing this in a way that's, this is supposed to be a Palestinian business in LA. And, they're not going to have stuff like this up on the wall. It's just, it's so stereotypical and it's just not cool. Like, there's no way you would see the opposite. If this was a show where Palestinian people were featured and they went to a Jewish restaurant, they couldn't get away with this kind of, it's basically slander.
Look at that one. Ooh. You're probably the only Jews ever walked in here.
Ever. What these people should do is send their chicken over to Israel.
For the peace process.
Mm-hmm.
They take down all those settlements in the morning, believe me.
So it's supposed to be amazing chicken. Like, they're raving about the food. And to minimize the suffering of the Palestinian people in an occupied country, and to say they could just bring this chicken over here and the Israelis would take down their illegal settlements, right? It's, making light of something and somebody's pain. Think about if there was a Palestinian show doing that about the Holocaust, right? And so this is pretty bad. Like, watching it for a second time, like it was bad the first time I watched it, but now that I've see it here and I'm in a different state of mind as I do the video, it's pretty offensive, right?
You know what? This would be a fantastic place for Jews who are cheating on their spouses to come to.
Right.
Because no Jews ever come here. They'd be so safe.
No one you know is going to ever see you here.
You would never get caught.
That's going to come into play later.
Ever.
Looks like they're planning the next intifada at this table, but look at this woman. Could be the next Mrs. David.
An intifada is a Palestinian uprising that's violent and, just the characterizations here. This is, again, I couldn't find anything about people being outraged, right? And this has a tie to RFK Jr. because his wife, she's not in this episode, but she is a regular cast member.
What do you think about that?
If by some chance she's going to get over her anti-Semitism, odds are
Not with me?
not with you.
Really?
Just my gut feeling.
You know what it is? You're always attracted to someone who doesn't want you, right?
Right.
Well, here you have somebody who not only doesn't want you, doesn't even acknowledge your right to exist.
Yep.
Wants your destruction. That's a turn on.
So again, the characterization of the Palestinian people is pretty rough here, right? This is pretty brutal. The way that he says that it's not only that she can't stand them, but doesn't acknowledge your right to exist, and that all these Palestinian people, that's how they feel about the Jews. And this was echoed by RFK Jr. And he's making jokes about it, but it's painting a very unfair stereotype of the Palestinian people, who are an occupied people. These are the kind of people that, when you're talking about woke consciousness, liberal consciousness, we're talking about African American people who are slaves and Native American people who are occupied and these things. And the Palestinians would fit in this category by definition, right? So this is pretty harsh. The next part is there's a dinner party and they start talking about this restaurant opening up next to a Jewish restaurant.
Cheers.
So her doing that, that after she drinks is going to come into play later.
Everybody buddy. Eat up. Come on.
Oh, did you guys hear about this? You know what's the chicken place in Westwood, the Palestinian one? What is it called? Al Abbas. Al Abbas. Best original chicken. They're opening up a second location right next door to Goldblatt's Deli.
Over my dead body.
I'm sure that wouldn't bother them.
LOL, Jeff.
Okay, so them saying that first they don't want the Palestinian restaurant to open next to their restaurant in L.A. Like, that's just, that's brutal. This is a dinner party of all Jewish people. And them saying that they can't open next to their deli, and then saying over your dead body, and that's how they would want it, that these Palestinian people are murderous. And also a couple things happen that are going to be involved in how this plot shakes out. And so this guy, the bald guy, is married to the woman who, I think she played Janice on the Friends show, Chandler's girlfriend. And she says LOL, and it drives him nuts, but he sees that he can't say anything to her because he's henpecked. And he sees that Larry David will say anything to anybody. So Larry David had hit his car earlier. And it's going to cost him $500 to get the guy's car fixed. And the guy said, I'll pay for my own car if you tell my wife that saying LOL is annoying. And Larry David does that. And she says, did my whiny, wimpy husband put you up to this? And she slams him. And then she's going to cheat with another guy at the dinner party because of that. And the overweight dude says to Larry David, when Larry David's telling him about that you're an emotional assassin. I'll show you that clip coming up in a bit. And the teenage girl, wants Larry David to do the same thing to her mom and tell her to stop making that sound when she drinks, right? And Larry David said he doesn't want to do it because his doing it last time resulted in the woman cheating, and so the young girl blackmails him, and because she overheard the guy talking about they see the couple cheating at the Palestinian restaurant, and she says she's going to tell everybody, which is going to wreck their chances of, because they're talking about how they're not going to tell anybody about the cheating because they want to win the golf tournament, right? Like, these are horrible people, is what I'm saying. Larry David was the guy, the inspiration behind Seinfeld. And he's a much worse person than Jerry Seinfeld. And Jerry Seinfeld's not great. And he's really unlikable. And these characters are manipulative and hostile and prejudicial and petty and just, entitled and all these things. So, this one demographic, the Jewish people who are featured here, is, there's some self-deprecating humor, and there's also, they're horrible people in the show, and there's that. But the way that they define the Palestinian people is even worse, right? And so you can say, well, they're self-deprecating, this is comedy and all these things. But the way that they're, this is tropes. These are racial tropes that the Palestinian people are suffering here. And you'll see more of it as the plot, as it moves forward.
LOL.
How in the world can they dare open up a Palestinian chicken restaurant next to the sacred land of that deli?
Hey, this is America. They can do whatever they want. What do you mean?
It's just chicken.
I mean, they can legally do it, true, but should they?
They should. Yeah, they should.
It's insensitive. Why can't they open it a few blocks uptown?
They should move it a mile away.
I hear the chicken's really good, by the way.
I heard that too.
I heard
It's
that.
very
Did you
good.
hear that?
What does it
Heard the
matter,
same
really?
thing, yeah.
I hear it's like the
Excellent
best chicken ever.
Larry and his pal aren't about, they're defending the restaurant's right to open only because they love the chicken, right? like they're not doing it because it's morally right or it's fair or it's certainly legally right, and they're in America. This isn't the Middle East. This is in Israel, but, or what used to be Palestine. This is America. And because the chicken is excellent, they want another restaurant closer to home.
I tell you what I heard. There's going to be a rally next week at this new location they're trying to open. We should all show up at the rally and try to stop them from opening it.
Count me in.
Jeff, we're going, okay?
Whatever you say, darling.
We're going. Jeff and I are in. We're in on the rally. I'm going to make placards and everything.
In most countries, you could get somebody killed for $573.
I know. By the way, I was this close to telling her the other night.
You know what you are? You're a social assassin.
Jesus. I guess I am in a way.
Yeah, how'd it go?
Not too good.
So that's when he told the woman to stop saying LOL. And then there's going to be a struggle here.
Shalom. You know, I thought all last night, if Rabin can break bread with Arafat, I can have chicken at this anti-Semitic shithole.
So by virtue of them being Palestinian, they're automatically anti-Semitic, and they live in a poop hole, right? So think about that. Think about what they're saying here. That, that this chicken, he's saying that these former leaders of Israel and Palestine had a meal together, so he can go and have a meal here, even though these people are anti-Semitic, and whatever they have has to be a shithole because that's just how they roll.
Okay, that's just not going to work.
Yeah, that's no good.
What's not going to work?
The yarmulke.
Yeah.
I can't go in with wearing this yarmulke?
You're shoving it in their face.
Let's go in.
No. It's far too cocky a move.
What is this, the raid on Entebbe? Let's just kind of walk in, kind of.
What? Proud Jews wear yarmulkes?
Yeah, be proud here in the parking lot. You don't need to be proud in there.
Let's just go in and sit down.
Take it off. Take it off.
I'm not doing anything.
off.
Don't you dare go after my yarmulke. Don't you reach for that. Don't you ever touch that. No, don't ever grab my yarmulke. Give it to me. Don't ever grab my yarmulke, ever. How dare you? Don't ever touch my yarmulke. Do you understand?
What the hell is that? We're going to go eat without you.
Good. Who needs you? Get out of here.
The Palestinian people who are inside are watching this, and they're applauding Larry David for ripping the yarmulke off of his friend's head because they could never tolerate such a thing in their restaurant. And, again, the stereotypes and the narrative they're painting here is like so offensive.
Thank you. Oh, well, hello.
You're a Jew, yes?
Yes, I am a Jew.
A big Jew.
Big Jew, and you still told him to take off his Jew cap.
Yes, I did.
Thank you, my friend.
So because he made his friend take off his yarmulke, she's ended up going to have sex with Larry David because that's how Palestinian women roll.
I like you.
What's not to like?
You're a Jew.
So she has sex with Larry David, and while she's grinding on him, she's yelling all kinds of racial slurs and saying horrible things like filthy J word and you're an occupier and like swearing, and things. It's making it worse than what I'm saying, right? And he's agreeing with it. And then after they're done, they come down the stairs, and there's this guy with his yarmulke on.
Well, Martin? Shara? Martin? All right then, shall we?
So his friend harasses him about, banging this Palestinian and the things that she was saying because he overheard all the slurs and things. And then he says he can't play in the golf tournament. He's their best golfer. And he can't play in the tournament because he won't play on a Sabbath. And so Larry David's going to talk to his rabbi. His rabbi told him he couldn't play on the Sabbath, so Larry David goes and visits his rabbi.
All right, you can finish in my office.
Go ahead.
Is that alabas chicken?
Fantastic.
That looks delicious.
You don't mind? Sure you don't mind? Huh?
No, finish your lunch.
I know we have our problems with these people, but man, oh man, they know what they're doing, chicken-wise.
Keep that away from me no matter what.
Okay.
Give it to me!
No matter what,
Give me that! Give me that!
No, let's go.
How did you get the rabbi to let me play?
I can't tell you.
No, please tell me.
All right, let's just say I had something she really wanted.
So they're going to win the golf tournament. The rabbi sold out her principles of not allowing him to play on the Sabbath for some Palestinian chicken. Like it's just like so degraded. But so they're playing golf. They're 4 strokes up. They have 1 hole to go. They're going to win the tournament. And then everything falls apart. The woman who makes the sound when she drinks and her daughter show up, and the daughter pressures Larry David to tell her to stop. And then she confronts her husband saying that it was him that put Larry David up to it, but the daughter says no, that she blackmailed Larry David because she knew that the other couple was cheating, and they forfeit the game because they can't complete it because everyone runs around. And then there's the protest at the deli and the new Palestinian chicken place.
Rerouting traffic for a protest rally. Some Palestinian chicken place opening up next to a deli. Can you move forward, please?
So thank God this isn't realistic, or maybe it is, I don't know. This is liberal LA, and these people are yelling at each other, and here comes Larry David being in the middle of the whole thing.
Larry, come join us over here.
Come with us. You're a Jew.
No, Larry, come to this side and I'm yours. Larry, I'm yours whenever you want. Come over here.
Larry, you belong with us. Come.
There's no decision. Get over here. Larry, I have a sister. You, me, and Yasmin. The 3 of us. All right, that's enough. Just get the over here. Just get the over here. Stop being an idiot. Larry, come over. Larry,
Don't be
get
a
over
dick.
here. Just
Don't be
listen
a
to them,
dick.
Larry.
Get over
You're
here.
Larry. Anything you want, Larry. Anything you want.
There's some parts I edited out, but you can see how offensive this is. And the first thing to understand is one of the definitions of abuse is unequal power. So when I worked in treatment centers with sexual offenders, one of the ways that you would define abuse is unequal power in a relationship. Like the stuff that happened with Louis C.K., it was considered abusive because he asked women to watch him, pull his, and he was a famous star, and they were up-and-coming comedians, and they felt pressure to say yes. And so that's kind of an extreme version of that. But you see this with elders, parents, teachers, this kind of thing. People, bosses who have more power over their employees, right? And when you have more power, and it could be any physical power, it could be any kind of, emotional and status and money power and things like this. And so in this circumstance, it's abusive because the people who are in charge of making this show are Jewish, right? Their cast is Jewish. It's about Jewish people. And I can't think of one Palestinian person. Think of one famous Palestinian person. Think of one prominent Palestinian person in America. I mean, I don't know any. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't name one famous Palestinian person. I can't name one show or movie I've seen about Palestine other than YouTube clips or clips that people have put up on Facebook, people who are pro-Palestinian people showing Palestinian people getting abused in Israel. Like I've seen things like that. But I don't know a famous Palestinian person. I don't know of any TV shows or movies that are about Palestinian people. There is this idea that Jewish people run Hollywood. When you say that, you're accused of being anti-Semitic. But there is a lot of Jewish-based TV shows and movies. I can think of I could name hundreds of them. Of course, Seinfeld and this show would be comedies, but there's so many, Schindler's List. I mean, how many movies are about the Holocaust? Like, how many movies have you seen about the Palestinians getting displaced from their homeland, which is what happened, right? And we'll get back into that in a moment. You don't see any. Like, I haven't seen one movie about the abuse of Palestinian people. I've only seen a few movies. There's Dances with Wolves and a few movies. I don't know how many movies I could name about the displacement of the Native American peoples. I've seen some movies about slavery, but I've seen lots and lots of things, or at least know of lots and lots of things about the Holocaust, right? Or something to do with the Holocaust. There's probably 3 movies released or a TV show. There was something with or about Nazis or whatever it is. There was a recent Amazon show, I didn't see it, but Al Pacino played a guy who was in charge of a group of people who are Nazi hunters. So there's these types of movies that are there. The Omen, if you ever see The Omen, it's a movie about they're trying to raise little Hitlers all over the world. They've cloned Hitler and all these things. And so there's a lot of these types of movies and TV shows that feature Jewish people and the plight of Jewish people and what they went through, and that are coming from a Jewish perspective. And there's so many executives, the guy who runs Disney, I don't know if he's still there, Bob Iger, and the guy who used to run CNN, I don't know about the guy now, but all these guys who are in charge of media companies, many of them are Jewish. Of course, Amazon is run by a Jewish guy. And so I know of lots of Jewish people who are in powerful positions. I know of lots of famous Jewish people who have influence over our entertainment, our news, our politics, our economy. Jewish people in charge of the Federal Reserve, people in the high positions in the government, and the guys who run banks like Jamie Dimon, right? So I know of lots of famous, influential Jewish people, and so do you. Most of you do as well. I don't know of one Palestinian person. And so this show, which is, again, there's no Palestinian lobby group, there's no, anything that's significant to call, this is way worse than what Kyrie Irving did, or even to some extent what Kanye said. As offensive as those things were to Jewish people, this is far worse. The way that they have these tropes and they stereotype these Palestinian people as being angry and hostile and wanting to kill all Jews like there's something wrong with them. They're just sociopaths. This woman willing to prostitute herself and her sister just to lure a Jewish guy away from his friends or whatever it is there. And so, it's really bad. It's really offensive. And it comes from a power imbalance, like I said earlier. And there's more to the power imbalance. And so I covered this extensively in this long video on my other channel. So this is like a supplemental video. And I try to remember, because I don't keep track of this. I don't make videos about Jewish people. Like I said, there's so much Jewish hate in the truth community. I want no part of it. I don't want it here. Don't leave Jewish hateful comments. We're not together on that, right? What I'm saying here is specific to Kennedy and, some of this stuff with the victim consciousness that I talked about in my other video. But the Palestinian people, they don't have an army. And I went through the statistics of they don't have an air force, they don't have a navy. Israel has a substantial air force and a substantial navy, a substantial military. And the Palestinian people have no army, and that's why they're throwing rocks, right? And so there's that. Also, the gross national product, money, the Israel's gross national product was something like 488 billion, and Palestine's was like 18 billion. Israel's was 27 times greater in terms of their economic power, right? In terms of getting support, Palestine gets some money from the U.S. It's like under $1 billion. I forget what annually the Jewish people get, but they've got more aid since World War II than any other country. They've got $300 billion worth of aid from America since whatever it was. Maybe it wasn't World War II. Maybe it was in recent history. And so I think it was World War II. So they have been built up since their creation. They get military support from the U.S. They get, support from European countries. Certainly England and the UN has favored them. And the Palestinians don't have anything, right? They have a less income, no military, and they got the worst land. The Israelis got all the, the coastal land on the Mediterranean Sea. They have places where you can go vacation there. From what I've seen, the Mediterranean Ocean is beautiful, and the rest of the country is desert and, not nice, right? And so all the cities are by the ocean. Most people live by the coast. I talked about this in my other video. So they got the better land. They got more worldwide support. They get much more support and military support from the United States. They have the better military. And, they're occupying the Palestinians, which is what RFK Jr., for some reason, said that isn't the case, and the Israelis are the victims, and the Palestinians are the aggressors with their rock throwing and all these other things, right? The other piece that I didn't say is that it says here, let me see if I have it. Here it is. It says that in 486 BCE, I would assume that's before Christ. It says this here. Let me just read it. The Babylonians conquered Israel around 260 years ago. 2,600 years ago. So this is before Christ. So this is, a long time ago. And destroyed the first temple. Most of the Jewish population was exiled to Babylon, but some Jews remained. And so there was about 25,000 Jews in like 1894, right before 1900. And then 50 years after that, there was 450,000 of them. So they all emigrated in because in the countries they were living in Europe, of course, Germany, but many of these other European countries and other places were against Jewish people. They turned on them for whatever reason. And so they started coming to Palestine. And it was called Palestine. And so Palestine was owned by the British after World War I. And then after World War II, the Palestinians were complaining about all the Jews coming into their country. This was a massive immigration. Britain started to impose restrictions which were ignored, and there were all these Jewish people coming in illegally into the country, and the Palestinians still outnumbered them 2/3 by 2 to 1, and yet the UN and the British government gave the best land, the choicest land, to the Jewish people, and they've been expanding that land ever since. There's nothing called Palestine anymore. Palestine doesn't exist. There's no state of Palestine. It's now Israel. So the power differential here is quite substantial. And I'm saying this because of the woke culture and the liberal culture, Hollywood culture, and all this stuff to do with, RFK Jr., that the people who they would normally support in this kind of conflict would be the African American slaves and the indigenous Native Americans and all these, there's all these places around the world where ethnic cleansing takes place. And the liberal groups and all these progressives, all these people, lots of Democrats, these type of people, support the minority populations. These are protected groups on YouTube and places like that. And they are, why isn't the Palestinians a protected group? Why aren't they a protected group where you can't criticize them and say things, to them? Like Jewish people are a protected group, but Palestinians aren't. Why aren't the Palestinians? They're in a weaker position, and they clearly, have a right to be upset. They're not the problem here. They're not the England and the UN and, whatever it is, NATO, the powers that be, and these immigrating Jewish people stole their country from them. And you can say, okay, this is how it goes. It happens. All right, sure. It does happen. And I'm not a person that says everyone gets to be offended. Everyone gets to be a victim. In fact, I say the opposite. I don't care about these things. Like, everybody can complain and find some way they're a victim, either personally or the demographic they are in. Most people in America, you ask the white people, they feel like they're being victimized. You ask the black people, the Hispanic people, the people in the LGBTQ community, Jewish people, they all think they're being victimized. They all think that they're getting a raw deal. Most Americans think that their demographic is somehow being screwed over. It's amazing that that's the case. But you go demographic by different demographic, they all have a story of how they're being offended and how they're being mistreated. I'm in several demographics, being introverted, being dyslexic, and being a truther, and also doing an Eastern spiritual practice are all things that put me in a minority. And the system isn't set up for people like me. It's the educational system is not great for a dyslexic person or an introvert. The economic system isn't great for a dyslexic person or an introvert. And, I don't have the kind of connections I would have if I was a Christian or a Jewish person or, I was in some sort of demographic where has some power. But the biggest one is being a truther. We're demonized. We're basically thought of as terrorists. We're all lumped together whether we agree with the Cubies or the right-wing and left-wing truthers were all lumped together or whatever it is, right? And even in that, I don't consider myself a victim. Like, I don't, it is what it is, right? We all have to eat some boop. And I'm not a person like, oh, you get to be offended by this, you get to be a victim, because anybody who believes in God, then everything comes from God. Either there's a plan there or there's not. And I talked about this significantly in my other video. But in terms of their definition, Hollywood's definition, and all the demographics, the Democrats, the liberals, the people that are always crying foul, not just for their group but other groups. Women, I left out women. How'd I leave out women? These groups, and the one thing they never talk about is the Palestinians. I mean, there's some extreme liberal people or human rights people, liberal groups, but they don't get a platform. The Palestinian plight isn't talked about by anybody. And I'm not, going to cover it here. I'm not going to, this isn't what I do here. But you can see it. Like, it's just there to be seen. And that's what makes RFK's take on this so egregious. It was really hard to watch. I mean, given how great he was in these other interviews and how his decision-making, his ability to articulate things and be fair-minded and, give historical perspective to these different issues that seem to be spot on, most of them. And now he's made himself into somebody that's not trustworthy because of how bad it was. And so you can watch the rest of the video. I mean, this is a continuation of what I did over on my other channel. And I'm going to wrap this thing up here. And like I said, I'm not into this issue. It doesn't, I'm not bothered by it in the sense of, this is a system that's, it's a corrupt system, and there's a lot of evil in the system. And people suck. And people are going to do bad things to you, but there's also a divine will and an order to things. And you have to look at the latter and not focus on how bad people suck, and, look at it as being a gift from God. And that's how you evolve spiritually, and most people don't do that. But in terms of the narrative here, the Palestinian people obviously have been victimized. Whether you want to look at it like that, I don't like to look at it like that, but other people do. And if one group is claiming to be a victim and the other group is at a disadvantage in terms of power on every level, you can't, other than population numbers, the raw numbers of people, the Palestinians have less power than the Israelis in every possible way. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting for the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.